All right, welcome to Agent Prep with Lillie Hendy. Remember to tap that subscribe button and click the little bell so you get notified every time I post a new video, and go ahead and like this video. Happy Saturday. We're starting again with our normal traditional way of vocabulary, national questions, and then state questions, okay? Comment moderation. So we continue off where we left. All right, let me minimize this screen and we'll wait to get some people on board and get on our way. So the source that I'm using is this one, Texas Real Estate Sales Exam, 4th edition. It is an old version, but it is still excellent for reviewing vocabulary and taking 4 exams, 1 through 4 with 110 questions. There are a few questions that are outdated, and you'll need to pay attention to that, and I do point them out as I'm going through them. So when we come up to the question, excuse me, I will point out that it is an outdated question and correct the portion that is wrong. And this is table of contents is right there. So this is the information that's on this book, and it's an excellent source. So as you can see, it has exam 1, 2, and 3, and 4, and it has math review, a refresher course, preparation ideas, and the glossary. And then those are national questions that we'll get started after we go through the vocabulary, the answers. Okay, let's see, 38. Oh, that's not good. So I'm still waiting for folks to show up. Okay, I see a couple of you already on. So I was still organizing here since I'm on a brand new computer that I thought it would be set up like I normally have it. All right, so good morning everyone, and ready to get the class started. And we're continuing on today with vocabulary. We'll start at clear title. So for those of you who haven't seen it, this is the source we're using. Table of contents. I posted it on one of the posts for you all to download. And for those of you that are already on Messenger group, I posted it in there. So from here on, search for it, okay? Be resourceful and find it. It's also under files on the group, okay? All right, so let's continue on, and we'll start with clear title. Let me enlarge my screen a little bit. Okay. Oh, but if I do that, then it won't. Clear title. A title that is free of liens and legal questions as to ownership of a property that is a requirement for the sale of real estate, sometimes referred to as just title. Good title or free and clear. So a lot of us are familiar with a car title, right? When we're selling a car or buying a car, we get a car title. If we have a loan on it, it's going to have the lender's name on the title. Well, that is similar to a warranty deed and a special warranty deed, which gets conveyed and signed by the seller. When the title search done by the title company is pronounced clear. Okay, so the title company does a title search to check the chain of steps within the title of that property and chain of ownerships, of events, anything that's on there, liens and stuff. So any liens, judgments, child support, mechanics liens, property taxes, all that has to be clear before it can be conveyed, transferred to the next owner, which is the buyer, right? The seller signs the warranty deed. Closing. The point in a real estate transaction when the purchase price is paid to the seller and the deed to the property is transferred, conveyed. So get those two words, conveyed, transferred, from the seller to the buyer. So the seller is actually alienating. Good morning, Eric. I was delayed today because excuses, right? I bought a new computer identical almost to my other one, but more powerful, Microsoft Pro. And I thought my online stuff was going to be totally set up like I had left it on my other computer. Well, not so. So I had to download Acrobat and have that. Okay, so thank you for joining. So at the closing, the seller will sign the warranty deed, special warranty deed, whichever one, a type of deed that they're using, and that transfers it to the buyer. Okay, and so it is given to the buyer, it's accepted, acknowledged, and it's recorded. So at that point, it's completely transferred, right? Of course, it doesn't all happen right there at the closing because they don't record it there. It has to go to the courthouse to be recorded. Nowadays, the title company just electronically wires it to the courthouse to get it recorded, and they will send original documents, or they have a carrier that takes it to the courthouse. Closing costs, which we abbreviate as CC, kind of like you're doing a carbon copy on a letter. There are two kinds of closing costs: non-recurring closing costs and prepaid items. Prepaid items are like, sorry guys, I just noticed my kitten running around with one of my necklaces that he got that he got from the bathroom. Okay, and that makes me comical. Oh my gosh. So where was I? Prepaid items. So prepaid items are things that, like the home inspection, the appraisal, that were paid, okay, home repairs, anything like that that was paid out of pocket by the buyer. Those are prepaid items. And the non-recurring closing costs are going to be like the lender costs, okay, a appraisal cost. That's considered a prepaid item, although it's paid during the process of closing with the lender. So any costs that are not going to happen again are considered non-recurring closing costs. So it said any item paid once as a result of buying the property or obtaining a loan is a non-recurring cost. So those are all the costs that the lenders charge, and closing costs, you know, can range from 1.5% for the seller to plus 6% commission or 5% or 8%, whatever commission we charge. Those would be seller closing costs. Buyer closing costs can be 2%, 3%, 5%, depending on how much their property taxes are, how much their insurance is, because all those are paid, okay, at closing. And all right. Prepaid items are items that recur over time, such as property taxes and homeowners insurance. Okay, that's what, sorry, I said prepaid items. Okay, were like inspections. So property taxes and homeowners insurance, okay, those have to be paid every year, right? And they recur over time. And so at closing, the lender is going to take about 12 months of property taxes and about 14 months of insurance, because they want the home totally insured. So that becomes one of the closing costs. And if your insurance is $2,000, okay, and if the home is $200,000, that's already 1% closing costs towards the buyer. Now comes the property taxes. They're going to ask for 4 months of property taxes. So as you can see right there, the percentage of what the buyer is going to pay starts adding up. The lender could have a 1% origination fee or 1.5%. That brings it up already to 2.5%. You start adding the interest for the days before it closes, the home inspection, the appraisal, the survey, okay, the closing cost by the title company, and documentation. So the percentages start to increase really quick. So closing costs can be on a $150,000. It can be about $7,000 or more. Okay, so it adds up. So on a $200,000 home, you know, it's going to end up maybe being 4%. It can be very expensive. Now, if the buyer is doing a conventional loan, they are doing a large down, 20% down, they don't need a survey, and they don't need, then the percentage will start going down. Certain costs are fixed, like the fee that the title company charges or the escrow company to process the closing, you know, that can be $300 to $500. So no matter how expensive the home off is, those costs will be fixed, but the majority are not. So a lender makes an attempt to estimate the amount of non-recurring closing costs, okay, which are costs that are paid once, and prepaid items on the good faith estimate. And so that's where the lender has to provide truth in lending, and they'll provide a like a spreadsheet. Well, not a spreadsheet. It's a statement where it has all the expenses, and that's prior to. Now, it doesn't happen all the time. So if the buyer really wants that, they need to really ask for it, or we as the buyer agent need to advise them. So these prepaid items on the good faith estimate, which is issued to the borrower within 3 days, okay? It says there, within 3 days of receiving a home loan application. It doesn't happen all the time. In fact, it doesn't happen a lot of times. They end up giving it to them at the end. And then the buyer says, well, I never saw that. Now, in today's, in this period, the closing disclosure, which used to be called a HUD, has to be provided 3 days prior to closing to the buyer, and that comes from the lender. Closing date, the date on which the buyer takes over the property. So at that point, there are certain expenses the seller pays and other expenses that the buyer starts to pay as of the closing date and therefore. So the property taxes are prorated. The interest is prorated. Not the interest. The homeowners association are prorated. Items like that get prorated. Seller pays up to the closing date and buyer after that. Closing statement. That is also called a settlement statement. A written accounting of funds received and disbursed during a real estate transaction. The buyer and seller receive separate closing statements. So buyer doesn't see the sellers and sellers doesn't see the buyers. The realtors will see each of their clients. If you're the listing realtor, if you're the buying realtor, the buyer's realtor, you want to make sure that you get to see if your commission is on there, in addition to all the expenses that the buyer is responsible for. If you're the listing realtor, then you're going to get to see all of the seller's expenses, and it'll also include on there where the commission is being applied, because of course 50% of your commission goes to the other party. So we say the seller is paying for the sale of the home, the 6% commission or whatever commission is negotiated, and the listing agent and broker, okay, pay the buying agent, buying broker, 50% of that or whatever percentage is put on the MLS. So again, today the closing statement is called a closing disclosure and provided to the buyer 3 days prior to closing. Cloud on title. So when you have a cloud, right, it blurs things. So think of it that way. A cloud blurs things on a title. It's an outstanding claim or encumbrance that can affect or impair the owner's title. Anything that is causing it not to be a clear title is called a cloud. So you see, clear title means it's free of all liens and legal questions. And it is fee simple, it is a good title, and it has all the bundle of rights. So it's fee simple. Okay, and here you say free and clear, but in your book that you studied, it's called a fee simple title. So then if it's not clear, it has a cloud. It has something outstanding. See the word encumbrances? You'll see that in some of the questions. What's an encumbrance? It's a lien, it's an attachment. Clustering. The grouping of home sites within a subdivision on smaller lots than normal, with the remaining land slated for use as a common area. So that could be any, a lot of subdivisions are being developed now, and they'll have a community area. It doesn't have to be a gated. A lot of higher end subdivisions are gated, and then they have homeowners association fees. Okay, but that's not always the case. It depends on the developer. So, codicil, a supplement or addition to a will that modifies the original instrument. You know, I rarely see that word. And so if somebody were to mention it to me, I'm like, I'd be saying, what? Because, you know, although we have experience in being in the business, we don't use all the terms. You'll be familiar with a lot of these once you're doing business. You'll learn a lot of this as you go, okay? Once you're practicing real estate, you learn on the job. Co-insurance clause, a clause in an insurance policy that requires the insured to pay a portion of any loss experienced. So if they've used their insurance to claim any other clauses, it may have something like that in there. Or they may have another insurance and they have to inform the insurance company whenever there's a claim. They'll be asked, do you have another insurance? So collateral, something of value, hypothecated, real property, or pledged, personal property. So hypothecated, real property. Personal property is pledged, okay, by a borrower as security for a debt. So let's say you want to get a loan, and I have experience doing this. When I was in Oregon, we wanted to get a loan to do another garage or something. So we took an antique Mercedes, okay, that was a 1956 or something, brought over from Germany, and it had a value of over $50,000. So we used that as collateral. So we pledged the car, okay, for a security, as a security for money we were borrowing from the bank. The house could be your collateral when you're purchasing another one. You can use money or you can use collateral. That's negotiated between the buyer and the seller. Collection. When a borrower falls behind, the lender contacts the borrower in an effort to bring the loan current. The loan goes to a collection company, and those collection companies will be very persistent and they can go on for years. If they are credit card companies, they cannot go after your home. Property taxes, mortgages, deed of trust, they can go after your home. But credit cards cannot. They ruin your credit and they pester you they pester you, okay, until it is paid, or if you completely ignore it, or you file bankruptcy, get it modified, anything like that. Color of title. An instrument that gives evidence of title, but may not be legally adequate to actually convey title. I've never experienced using the color of title. That would probably be, because it's a legally adequate to actually convey. So in my days of investing or dealing with buyers and sellers, I've not dealt with that instrument. Commercial property. Property used to produce income, such as an office building or a restaurant. It can be a multiplex unit, it's a commercial property. Anything that is more than 4 units is considered commercial, right? Because our residential contract, it says what? 1 to 4 family residential contract. 1 to 4. Anything above 4 becomes commercial. So anything that produces income, apartment complexes, timeshare, although if it's a single timeshare, that's called a, we had it, not a condominium, but a cooperative, okay? Co-mingling. When you cover the top part, you're mingling, right? You're mixing. So it's a legal act of an agent mixing a client's monies, which should be held in a separate escrow account, with the agent's personal monies in some states. It means placing funds that are separate property in an account containing funds that are community property. Never, never, never deposit client money into our personal account nor business account. It has to go into an escrow account. And that's why we take it to the escrow title company. In some states, the escrow and title company are separate. Here in Texas, they're basically in the same location, title and escrow, but it's two separate like departments. The title company does the title insurance, the chain of ownership on the title, and that has to be paid for because it's like home insurance, auto insurance, health insurance. It is called title insurance. Okay? And, excuse me, I was going to sneeze. So that money now, the earnest money, goes to the escrow company, title company. If there isn't a title company, okay, it'll go to an attorney. And attorneys become escrow officers. They can be, because they know all the legality. Commission is the fee paid to a broker for services tendered in a real estate transaction. There is no fixed commission. Okay? That would be a monopoly, and we can't do that. Competition is necessary. So commission is negotiated between the listing agent and the seller, and it belongs to the brokerage, right? Commitment letter, a pledge in writing affirming an agreement. So if a seller, and you will see commitment letters in commercial properties where they will do a letter of intent, a letter to be able affirming an agreement instead of doing a whole contract. Commercial properties can take months, years to complete a negotiation. Common law, the body of laws derived from local custom and judicial precedent. Common areas, portions of a building, land, and amenities owned or managed by a planned unit development, PUD, P-U-D, that's what it stands for, planned unit development, or condominium projects homeowners association, which is, we know it as HOA, or POA, Property Owner Association, or a cooperative projects, cooperative corporation. Okay, and that can be, timeshares. These areas are used by all of the unit owners who shares the common expenses of their operation and maintenance. So if you've ever had a timeshare, you hear the word maintenance, that you have to pay your maintenance fee every year. And you get to pick the week that you want. So these areas are used for all unit owners who share common expense in their operation and maintenance. Common areas may include swimming pools, tennis courts, and other recreational facilities, as well as common corridors of buildings, parking areas, and lobbies. You at some point may see a question in the exam that says, okay, what does your insurance cover? The use of the elevator and the lobby or things like that? Or does it cover just a plumbing issue or your electrical issue inside your condominium? Well, the homeowner's insurance covers what's inside the house, not the common areas. That comes from the maintenance fees. Community property. So Texas is a community property state, a system of property ownership in which each spouse has equal interest in property acquired during the marriage, recognized in 9 states, and Texas is one of them. Now, it may be in more than 9 states, since this is an outdated source from 2006. So don't take that with a grain of salt. We'd have to Google it. Comparable sales. So comparable sales are recent sales of similar properties in nearby areas that are used to help estimate the current market value of a property. Before we recommend a price to our client, we're going to do a market analysis. And we will do a comparable or a competitive. Merlin, psst, get down. A competitive versus comparable market analysis, okay? So the comparable is going to do only sold properties. The competitive is going to do active, sold, and pending. So keep that in mind. Why the difference? Competitive, you're competing with someone else. So the seller is competing with other homes on the market. That is a competitive. We want to show them the active properties, that's their competition. The pending, how long did it take for them to sell? We don't know what price they're getting, but we'll know at what list price it was triggered to get an offer. And then the solds within the last 6 months. If the market is changing much more rapidly than 3 months, 1 month. Right now, properties are getting multiple offers in the first few hours. And that's because there is low inventory. And we have excellent interest rates at 2 to 3%. I mean, I've never seen that. Okay, I don't think any of us have ever seen 2 to 3% interest rates until this market during COVID. So comparable sold properties, okay? Competitive, active, pending, and sold. So competent parties, people who are legally qualified to enter a contract, usually meaning that they are of legal age. Remember, 18. Only the under 18 can terminate a contract. It's not invalid. It's a valid contract, but the underage person can terminate, cancel, invalidate that contract, not the other party that is over 18. So competent part meaning that they are of legal age, of sound mind, and not under the influence of drugs or other mind-altering substances. Competitive analysis, we already did it. Active, pending, and sold. And condemnation, so this goes with eminent domain. The judicial process by which the government exercises its power of eminent domain. So eminent domain, okay, is the It's the right to take property for public use. Condemnation is the act. They are exercising its power. They're taking action, right? When you exercise, you're doing activity. You're acting. Condominium conversion. Condominium, a form of ownership in which an individual owns a specific unit in a multiple unit building and shares ownership of common areas with other unit owners. So in a condominium, the individual buys home insurance for what their unit only inside. The HOA or community expenses that they have to pay for maintenance, that covers the rest of the condominium building, okay? Elevator, common areas, pool, things like that, the outside, the external of the building. Their home insurance covers their unit only. Condominium conversion, changing the ownership of an existing building, usually a multi-dwelling rental unit, from single ownership to condominium ownership. And so there are places that have converted apartment buildings and have converted them to condominiums, or they've converted them to townhomes. Although townhomes usually have a separation and they have a piece of land, so more than likely they're being converted to condominiums. And then why? Because, an apartment is converted to a condominium because why? Now they can sell it. Okay, and make more money instead of just renting. Of course, in order to do that, they have to get that approved by the city and also update them. Okay. Conformity, an appraisal principle that asserts that property achieves its maximum value when a neighborhood is homogeneous in its use of land, the basis for zoning ordinances. So they all conform, they are all similar. So subdivision owners, contractors, builders will end up having those conditions, restrictions, covenants, conditions, and restrictions. That's where those CCRs come in, conditions, covenants, and restrictions. And they are tighter than the city zoning. Okay, one more definition and we'll stop at 9:45. Consideration, something of value that induces parties to enter in a contract, such as money or services. So let me ask you, on a purchase and sale contract, is money required to make it a contract? You guys can answer. So what it says in the contract, it's consideration is required, not money. So that consideration does not have to be money. They could end up saying it's a letter of intent, a promise to pay after a few days, or it can be collateral. So that is consideration. So if you have a question on the exam that says, is consideration have to be cash, or does cash money need to be used in order to make it a valid contract? No, it has to be there has to be a consideration. And that is the owner will consider accepting it, okay? All right, so we will end with consideration. Thank you, Eric. No money is required. Mo money. Okay, where's my book? So today is the 17th. So with glossary, we will continue on Wednesday with construction mortgage. Okay, on page 160. All right, welcome to Agent Prep with Lillie Hendy. Remember to tap that subscribe button and click the little bell so you get notified every time I post a new video, and go ahead and like this video.